Welcome, everyone. My name is Steve Scorsone. I'm with Express Capital Financing. We are a hard money lender, if you would, bridge financing, short and long-term financing, basically one-stop shop for all of your needs when it comes to real estate and real estate purchases. So we consider ourselves a relationship lender, not transactional. So we want to help you to grow throughout your investing life, if you would, help you to grow your portfolio. So, we'll be a second set of eyes on all deals. We do everything from fix and flip to long-term, 30-year mortgages, commercial, startup from ground up, you name it, we do it. Okay. I'm here today with Anthony Uva of auction.com. Anthony has decades of experience as an investor as well as an entrepreneur. He's very well versed in many facets of real estate investing. He's a lead auction coordinator on auction.com. He's able to keep his finger on the pulse for the distressed real estate market, which is often an indicator of where the overall real estate market is headed. So wonderful to have him here. Additionally, he's also a realtor in the state of New Jersey and is vice president of the Metro Real Estate Investor Association, a local chapter of the REIA. So with that being said, I'm going to kick it over to Anthony. Take us away, bud.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We're here tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about foreclosures, real estate owned, which are bank-owned properties, and the foreclosure process. Often the way that foreclosures affect the market is by supply and demand. So during COVID, everything came to a screeching halt. There were no evictions, there were no foreclosures, there were moratoriums on all these types of events. And so there was very, very little inventory on the market at all. And that caused prices to go up. Right after the moratoriums were lifted, we started to see more. We saw actually a jump in foreclosures because there was that pent-up demand, and because they were put off for a while, we saw a jump, and those numbers again affected the market. We're going to have more changes coming up based upon what's going on with the foreclosures now, and that's what we'll be talking about. And also, we're going to go through the auction.com platform. It's another pond that you can fish in for deals, things that aren't on the MLS, things that you won't find otherwise. And so we'll talk about that. And we call this brought to you by Green Team because if you go to any of the states where we actually do the Super Tuesday sales, you'll see all our teams dressed in bright green, so they're easy to find out there on the courthouse steps.
And then really quick, not to interrupt, but if you have any questions or during the process, think of something rather than raise your hand and interrupt or get Anthony off pace, if you could just maybe jot your question down in the chat room, and then we'll do like a Q&A at the end to answer anything that's in there. So
that would be great. Yes, thank you.
No problem, man.
Okay. So auction.com is we're kind of the 800-pound gorilla in the room when it comes to foreclosures. There's a few other smaller players in the field, but really auction.com dominates the foreclosure market in the US and has for quite some time. We're a privately held company. These the numbers here are probably way out of date. It says over 1,000 employees and sold over 329,000 properties and 39 billion in real estate since 2007. Those numbers are far surpassed. This presentation is a little bit out of date. We sell a lot of properties. Last week in Georgia alone, in one day, I think it was $52 million. That's a very typical Super Tuesday in a state like Georgia. So there's a lot of properties coming through auction.com. And if you're looking for distressed properties, that makes it a great place to be looking. Okay, so what do we offer buyers? Like I said, we're a different pond to fish in. We have assets listed for sale. both foreclosures and REOs. And we'll get into that a little bit later. And the process, what is a foreclosure, what is an REO, and how does that all work, the timeline of that. But on our platform, you can search over 30,000 investment homes. These homes are not available on MLS. They're not going to be things that you'll find. And it gives you the opportunity to also look outside of your area. So for investors, it may be in a high cost state, whether it be New York or New Jersey, California. Maybe you want to invest where properties might be a little more affordable and a different type of price point. You could look in areas like Tennessee or Texas. You're not limited geographically as you would be with the MLS or other platforms. So you can really look all over the country. We have tools on our platform to help you do some preliminary discovery to find out if it's a property you may be interested in. And you can bid from anywhere. The REOs are online, and it's as simple as going online, finding a property, and clicking on it. Let me see, that's not forwarding. No, there we go. We can go like that. Okay, so what is the life cycle of a distressed property? What exactly is a distressed property? When we talk about foreclosures, we talk about someone that is not current on their mortgage. So if when someone buys a house and they get a mortgage, the property is collateral for that loan. The bank is lending the money for the purchase of the property, and the property becomes collateral. So unlike a credit card or other types of loans, which are unsecured, this is a secured loan. The collateral for the loan is the house, and should the borrower default, the lender can come for that collateral to make good on what they are owed. So how exactly does that work? Okay, so if a homeowner goes into default, there is first thing that happens after they miss, depending upon the situation. It could be, usually it's like 90 days. If they're 90 days late, the bank will file what's called the lis pendens, which means there's a action pending. It's a Latin term, and it says if you don't get current, it's a way of letting them know if you don't get current, we will take further action. And that further action would be a foreclosure. And a foreclosure is taking the collateral to make good on the defaulted loan. And what do they do with that collateral? Generally, it's sold at a sheriff sale, a foreclosure sale, and they vary. The sales vary depending upon where you are in the country, or even where you are in certain states. They're run by the county sheriff, and every county is different, and every state is different, and it can be a little bit daunting at first. But once you start to get accustomed to it, you'll learn that there are rules you need to know and procedures you need to know. And depending on where you are, it could be a judicial state, or it could be a non-judicial state, which are two very different procedures. So for instance, I'm in New Jersey. We are a judicial state, and it's a very slow process to do a foreclosure in New Jersey. Whereas if you were to go to West Virginia, Texas, among other places, the process is fairly quick. So that is something to be aware of, how the process works. The foreclosure auctions are live auctions. They are open to the public, and they encourage competitive bidding. Sometimes they're held outside on the courthouse steps. Some people may have heard of, I bought it off the courthouse steps. Oftentimes, though, they are inside in the courtroom, or in sometimes a banquet hall, or at a hotel, or other venue that the sheriff may have made arrangements with. Now, when does foreclosure become an REO? If the upset price is not met at the live auction, the bank sets a price that's a minimum price that they are willing to accept on the foreclosure. and that is known as the upset. If it's not reached, the property will revert back to the bank. The bank then owns it. And then that will become an REO, which can also be bought off of the foreclosure platform, auction.com. Sometimes they're also listed with realtors. Okay, so let me just move my screen here a little bit. There we go. Okay, auctions. Auctions are, for all foreclosures are open to the public and they are held live. Additionally, there are some places that are now starting to have call-in or online bids. And that, again, it's going to vary depending upon the location. But generally, there's always a live auction that is at least part of the process. They're open to the public. Sometimes you need to register ahead of time. Sometimes you'll need to show proof of funds. Now, that's an important thing because if you're buying at auction, you need funds. You need cash. Doesn't have to be your cash, but it has to be cash. Depending upon the state, you may need to put down 20%, as you do here in New Jersey, where I am, and then pay the balance in 30 days. Other states, you need to pay 100%, pay in full on the day of the auction. So if you have deep pockets, you may be able to do that on your own. If not, it pays to have someone like Express Capital that has the ability to fund those deals for you. So that's an important thing to know. Also, you should always know what type of funds the county you're buying in accepts. Generally, they need to be bank checks, cashier checks, and either made out to you personally and endorsed over to the sheriff, or made out to the sheriff. Again, read the terms and conditions on the county website before you go. I have seen occasions where winning bidders had the property taken away and re-auctioned because they did not have proper funds at the auction. You need to be very sure that you have the funds that are acceptable at that auction. Also, most of the time, the checks need to be less than 90 days old. So if you don't get a property, you go back to again and again, bringing those same checks, maybe you keep them in a safe or you put them in a safe deposit box when you're not using them. Once they get close to 90 days, bring them back to the bank, get new checks, because if your funds do not match what the county requires, your bid will be disqualified and you will not get the property, even if you were the highest bidder. It's a pretty simple bidding process. Basically, they go around the room. Sometimes people have cards, sometimes with numbers on them, or sometimes the bidders will just raise their hands. It's competitive bidding up until the highest bid. Sometimes the plaintiff will bid against the bidders in the room. How does that work? For instance, I did an auction today. We do not announce upsets in the county I was in. Some counties allow us to announce the upset, which is the least amount that the bank will take for that property right at the beginning. So, if they say 150,000 is our upset, that property is not selling for a penny less than 150,000. If they don't get bids, it'll go back to the bank. In counties where we do not announce the upsets, for instance, I would bid on behalf of the plaintiff until I get up to the upset price, and then I back off and allow the other bidders in the room to decide who's going to be the high bidder on that. Once there's a high bidder and it's a hammer price, the sale is complete. It's a simple process. There's a little form to fill out, name, address, email, phone number, and how you want the deed titled on the property. Could be in your own name, could be in the name of an LLC or an entity, a company, depending on how you want it done. Oftentimes, the county will specify that they will not change the deed whatever is on that deed form the day of the sale, unless there's an additional fee paid. So if you say, I want it made out to myself, Joe Smith, today, and then you go, oh no, I want it made out to 123 Main Street LLC, there might be a fee to change the deed title. Many people do have LLCs that they take title in. Okay, on foreclosures, generally you do not have access to the property. The defaulted homeowner still owns the property up until the time of the foreclosure. You can't go into it. You can't see it inside. You can't do a lot of things. And that is especially true if it's occupied. Even if it's vacant on a foreclosure, you generally do not get to see the inside of the property. So you have to do your due diligence, check title work, look at the outside, look at the neighborhood. On auction.com, we have click through. We'll get onto the app a little later on, but we have some click through options where you can actually see photographs of the property. We'll do a little bit of the basic due diligence for you, and so you can more quickly ascertain if it's a property that you're interested in or not. Buying at auction, there's no buyer's premium, so whatever the hammer price is the price you pay. However, do listen to the terms and conditions that are read at the beginning. Sometimes there may be tax lien certificates or other liens against the property that may need to be settled at the time of the sale. And additionally, it doesn't happen often, but be sure to pay attention to the bid instructions also, because usually when it's being foreclosed, it's a first position mortgage, but not always. I have seen second position mortgages foreclose or HOA associations foreclose. And if that is the situation, then the buyer is taking it subject to the first mortgage, if it's a second foreclosing or if it's an HOA closing. So know who's foreclosing, what position they're in, and what you're going to be responsible for once you buy it. So understand the due diligence, understand the terms and conditions. Okay, so the foreclosure process. Basically, you find a property you like, you research it. If it meets your criteria, you decide how much you want to pay. And this again is important because you need to have good funds at the auction. So if you decide that, hey, I'm going to pay I would pay up to $100,000 for this property, just to use simple numbers. You need to then go to that auction. If it's a 20% deposit, you need to go to that auction with $20,000 in certified funds. Usually they will take some cash, but often it's limited to $1,000 in cash. So what most people will do is if you need $20,000, most investors will bring maybe a $10,000 check, a $5,000 check, and five $1,000 checks. You can make change. So if you got it less, you can still put down the 20% without going, giving more than is required at the time. Generally, for instance, here in New Jersey, there's a 10-day redemption period, which means the homeowner could possibly come back and get that property back for 10 days. They have a 10-day window. Rarely happens. If the property came to auction, they most likely do not have the means to do that, and it will be your property after that 10 days. Interest will start to accrue on the balance after 10 days in most counties, and you have 30 days to pay in full. So again, you cannot go and get bank financing. The bank's going to underwrite things completely different, and they're not going to be able to close in time. You need cash, whether it's your cash, hard money cash, your rich uncle's cash, or some combination thereof. It's a cash transaction. So find the property, do your research, find out what you want to pay for it. Confirm the details of where the auction is, when it is, what the terms are, how much you need to bring. Bring the funds, make sure it's current, make sure they're certified funds. They match whatever the requirements are on the county, and bid. Good luck to you. And I see people sometimes come and may not get a property for their first couple auctions. Also, I do recommend people go in and see a few auctions before you go in live and start bidding. It's good to have a little bit of an understanding of the process before you start spending your hard-earned money. So, you know, learn the process, and it's good. It's good good practice to see a few. Once you win, pretty much said it's a very simple form to fill out, and then 30 days later, that property is yours. Okay, so what are all these things? Liens and deeds and eviction and due diligence and title and research. These are terms you need to know when you're buying at a foreclosure. Also in REO, but more importantly on foreclosure. So liens. A mortgage is a lien against the property. The property is the collateral. There could be multiple liens. There could be liens for a mechanic lien. You know, Joe Smith had his house roofed and he didn't pay the roofer, and the roofer placed a lien against the house. At the auction time, that lien may be against the house. You may be responsible for paying that. Some liens can get wiped, especially credit cards and things of that sort. Taxes, you're going to have to pay if there's back taxes, if there's tax certificates. Generally, water and sewer and other municipal type liens need to be paid. Deed. The deed shows who owns the property. So when you have the deed made out, or when you fill out the form at the auction, you'll put the name of the entity or the person whose name the property will be in. And like I said, make sure you know who you want to do that ahead of time. And eviction. Sometimes it's necessary. Some of these houses at foreclosure may be occupied. If it's an occupied property, you may have to go through an eviction process. Now, it may be occupied by the homeowner that was foreclosed upon, or could be a tenant, depending upon the situation. And those situations are different. So know what you're getting into. An eviction process is obviously longer and more complicated than winning a vacant house that there's no one there and you don't have to go through an eviction process. So all this is part of the due diligence process and the research you need to do and the title work that you need to do. So due diligence. Know what the property is worth. Everything comes down to the numbers. What is the current price in the current condition? What's the ARV? The after repair value. How much are you willing to pay for it? What's your maximum allowable offer? You need to know all these things before you go in, and then work your numbers backwards, figure out how much you need to bring to the auction if you were to buy that. No, it's always good to know your local market and stay in one area. Try to stay in one area until you really know it, and then maybe branch out. If you try to do too many areas, it's hard to know all the markets and know the true values. Title review. It's a good idea, especially if you're starting and you don't know how to do these things on your own, to get a preliminary title report. It's kind of insurance. It'll tell you what is on there. Will you be getting clean title once you win the auction? And if not, what are the clouds on title? What are the liens that need to be satisfied in order for you to get clean title? You'll need to evaluate the property. Is it pretty much move-in condition? Is it occupied? Does it need repairs? Cosmetic repairs or a complete rehab? So kind of know what the property is like and know what the neighborhood's like also, especially in some inner cities, for instance, could go block to block. Are there vacant and boarded up properties on that block? Might not be the best block unless you have a longer term strategy where maybe you're going to hold on to it and the neighborhood is changing. But for a fix and flip, often you don't want vacant properties, boarded up properties in the area you're buying in. What's the upside potential? Is it an up and coming area? attend some open houses nearby. Find out what prices are going for. Find out what buyers are looking for. Find out what kind of renovations people are looking for. In some neighborhoods, buyers are expecting granite countertops and tiled baths. And in other neighborhoods, you might be able to get away with from like a countertop and lesser finishes. So know what kind of finishes are expected in the area you're working in, and what that's going to cost you to make those kinds of repairs, and what that rehab is going to consist of. Also, zoning requirements. I've seen houses that people thought were two-family, which were illegal two families. Know what it takes to be a landlord there. Know what is a legal use of the property and what is not. And also, don't forget to include insurance. And if the house is vacant house insurance is going to cost a little more than occupied house insurance. Take all these numbers into consideration when you're doing a flip, or when you're fixing up a house to rent. Okay, online bank-owned auctions. So, as I said earlier, if the upset is not met at auction, it becomes a bank-owned property or an REO. So, what's the difference now? Well, whereas when you were buying a foreclosure property, it could have lots of liens and title clouds and all types of things that were unknowns. Generally, once it becomes an REO, most of that stuff gets wiped, gets satisfied, and you're getting clean title. Also, you generally have access to the interior of the property, and so you therefore get to do an inspection on the property. So you know more of what you're getting. There's risk and rewards either way. Often you can get the property for less money at foreclosure auction, but there's more unknowns, and you have the due diligence process is a little different. Now, once they take it back, though, once the bank has it, they're not in the real estate business. They really don't want real estate, so they are motivated sellers. How motivated? That varies depending upon the market, but they are not in the real estate business, so it's a little different than dealing with a homeowner that may think they have the greatest house and they're emotional about their house. Banks are pretty much transactional, and they want the price that they need to get for it and move on. They want the cash for it. They don't want property. So you can buy real estate owned property, REOs, online with auction.com. And this gives you an opportunity to buy pretty much anywhere in the country. I know many investors that invest outside of their local market. Could be because they like they may be in an area where being a landlord is tough due to taxes and housing prices and tenant-friendly laws, or any number of factors. And maybe they want to invest in a different area. You can do that with auction.com. So you find the properties that you're interested in, you save them, and then auctions generally run over a week period. So you bid on it and you track it, and again, know how much you're willing to pay for it. If you win, you submit your deposit, and then you go through the closing process. Closing process on an REO is more typical of a regular real estate transaction than a foreclosure. So it's the normal title work and the normal closing. Difference being that it's bank owned rather than owned by a homeowner. So we have bank-owned auctions all across the country, and as I said, they're conducted once a week, and they end on the following day. So, for instance, here I am in New Jersey. Auctions end on Tuesday. So, something, one thing is people will often look at the opening bid on a property and go, ooh, I could get that property for $1,000. No, there's still an upset on it. You know, you're not going. You could get good buys, but you're not going to steal a property or get something that's that outrageous. And you will see sometimes a flurry of activity towards the end of the week. Sometimes auctions may be extended if it's within the last, I forget exactly, the last half hour or the last 10 minutes of an auction. If a bid comes in, they may extend the bidding for a certain amount of time to give the other bidders a chance to get their final bids in and get best and final. So auction.com does offer free tools for savvy investors. As I said, we have our app, we have a lot of information online, and these tools are available free of charge. The app that we have, which is available for iPhones or Androids, iPads, etc., it is a great tool. You can put in your favorite counties, your favorite areas, and pull up what is currently coming to sale for foreclosures, as well as the REOs in that area. You can then track it. If you see here on the phone, there are various buttons across the top here, and you can sort that. Let me just pull mine up so I can kind of walk you through this a little bit and figure out exactly how to use it. So for instance, I have on my phone right now, Ocean County, which is the county I was in today, Ocean County, New Jersey. And there are various buttons across the top. Cleared, pending, postponed, canceled, and auctioned. I know it's very hard to see right here, but take my word for it. And you'll see there's different color codes on these, the tops of the various assets here. So the first is cleared. Cleared means it's foreclosure and it's cleared for auction, and it's coming to auction on the next auction date. Next one is pending. Pending means it's pending for auction. It has not cleared yet. These properties can often be adjourned, and depending upon the state, depending upon the rules of the state, they could be adjourned multiple times. Usually here in New Jersey, the person being foreclosed upon, the defendant has 2 adjournments that they can ask for, uncontested. The plaintiff, the person or the entity foreclosing, has an unlimited number, or they could be by mutual agreement. So properties can be adjourned multiple times. And that brings us to the next button, which is postponed. So that just means that it's not coming to sale today. It's been postponed to a future date. Then we have canceled. Doesn't happen a lot, but sometimes they could be canceled. Could be due to a bankruptcy, which would stop the foreclosure process. It could be that they made their payments and they came current, and the property is no longer in foreclosure. So different thing, or it could be that they sold the property. They found a buyer, they got a price, and they were able to pay off the amount due. So, you know, various reasons that this could happen. And then the last button on the far right is auctioned. So once a foreclosure property is auctioned, it will light up that color. And these are all updated pretty much in real time. I mean, I've sat in the auction and seen it like light up as auctioned minutes or within a minute of the auction ending. Now, this is a great tool because also ahead of time, if you see these little arrows here, click on the arrow and it'll bring you to pictures of the property. It will give you basic information. It will show you a map. There's a lot of information. We've done some of the homework for you. Not full due diligence, but certainly enough to give you an idea of if you may be interested in that property or not. So it's a good tool to use. Okay, here we see a little bit better. Again, as I was saying, this is cleared, pending, postponed, canceled, and auctioned. Go to the county we're looking at. There's a little house icon. If you look at the icon, they generally have a number in there that says, I don't know, it's 14, I think. So that means 14 properties are pending in that county as of now, foreclosure. And then you could go to the next screen. And then again, here's an example of a picture of the property. Generally, these are like BPO type pictures. So you'll have a full frontal view. You'll have maybe side pictures on each way, and then 2 street views, 1 in each direction. Give you an idea what the neighborhood is like. And then you can click through and get additional information on the property. Property tracker, this is an older presentation that's not really happening anymore. Agent broker opportunities. This is something that is more geared towards presentations that are done for realtors, because realtors sometimes want to be involved. Sometimes realtors can be a designated bidder at an auction if a buyer cannot make it themselves. They can maybe manage rehabs for buyers that have a full-time job, can't do it themselves. They can list the flip listing, possibly get both ends of the deal. They can generate new clientele by working with investors that they might not have worked with otherwise, and they can become an investor themselves. So there are opportunities for real estate agents that want to work with investors to use our platform and learn the process and become more involved in the foreclosure process. And so this is our website. If you haven't checked it out, the web address is the name, auction.com. Easy to remember, easy to find. Like I said, we are by far the leading foreclosure platform in the country. So that pretty much sums it up. Any questions?
So it looks like there are 2 questions, Ann.
Okay.
Although actually it's from the same person, so I think it's actually a continuation. So it's from Daryl Moore. Thank you, Daryl, for asking. His question is there an after auction report that has the sales price of what the property sold for? I guess for each county.
Yeah, no, that's not something that we typically have. I mean, depending upon the state that you're in, some states are non-disclosure states. Dara, where, if you don't mind putting in typing in where you are, there are some states that are actually non-disclosure that don't publish real estate transaction prices, and there are some states where it's public knowledge. So you can look up, for instance, on the MLS, what a particular house sold for, how many times it sold. You can see the history of properties in some states.
He said he's from Texas, and I guess NC too, North Carolina.
NC, North Carolina. I'm not sure. I think those might be non-disclosure states. Again, I am in New Jersey. I can look up, like, I have access to MLS. I can look up, what any house sold for. Of course, there's lag time depending upon the filing of the deed and the mortgages and things, but it is public knowledge in some states, not all states, and no, we do not have that feature. Okay. Any other questions on the process or differences between foreclosures and REOs?
Give everybody a couple of seconds. See if there were any other questions.
And again, please remember, when you're dealing with distressed properties, you generally do not have time to go to a bank and for the bank to do underwriting. It's just not an option. So you do need cash. Doesn't have to be your cash, but they are generally cash transactions. That's part of the reason for the discount for buying at a better price.
So we actually do have another question, and just so everybody knows too, okay? I put my information in the chat, so my email is there as well as my direct office line and my cell phone. If you guys think of any questions offline, you want to send it to me, I can get you information from Anthony, whatever you guys need, but my information is there as well, so you can let me know after the call as well with any properties, anything in particular that you had to, had questions on that maybe you think of later. So we have a question from Earl Hill. Earl asks, do REOs have an upset price like foreclosures do?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And any property, whether it's being sold as a foreclosure or as an REO, has an upset price. Now that's going to differ again. There may be an upset price on a foreclosure, and then if it reverts to the bank, becomes a bank-owned property, that upset will change. Why does that change? Well, for one thing, if you're buying it as an REO, you're getting clean title, which means maybe there's a tax certificate against that property that the bank needs to satisfy. Maybe there are back taxes. Perhaps there was forced place insurance on that property. There could be a whole slew of different expenses that were occurred by the bank in taking over, foreclosing, and getting that property, winterizing the property, stabilizing the property, cutting the lawn. There's all types of expenses that they may incur and are built into their price. So just because it was a certain price when it was a foreclosure, when it was coming to sale as a foreclosure at the sheriff's sale, doesn't mean that that's the upset price once it becomes an REO. So there is an upset price also. That being said, there have been times I have heard sometimes that if it's close to what the bank is willing to accept, even if it doesn't quite hit that number, that they have on occasion, certain occasions, accepted that bid if it's close enough. Again, that's a business decision on their part. You can't say when or if it will happen or what, it's just a decision they'll make sometimes. So it could be possible you could get it for less than the upset, but there are upsets.
Great question, Al. It doesn't look like there are any other questions, and it looks like a few people have dropped off. Again, guys,
let me just bring up one other thing that I wanted to show. I had a couple of other diagrams. We talked a little bit about how foreclosures affect the market. These are average days to complete a foreclosure. Again, as I mentioned, it's different state to state. For instance, where are we? Here we are, New Jersey, almost 2,000 days. Whereas if you're in West Virginia, 82 days, Montana, 84. Texas is usually one of these real short ones too. I don't know why I don't see Texas up there. But let me see. And then here is another chart that I pulled. This is just, this is information that's out there, just things that I've pulled. This is where foreclosures were after the big downturn of 2008. Foreclosures shot up. This is, prior to this, anyone that could fog a mirror was getting a mortgage. Often they were variable rates, which means they had a teaser percentage up front, and then it changed, and people couldn't afford their homes anymore. Also, a lot of when the prices changed, a lot of those houses were underwater. So this is where they were, and it's gone down, 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 and this is COVID, because there was nothing happening. Now, as you see here, we're starting to go on a curve up again, and there's going to be pent-up demand that happened from this 2009, or I'm sorry, rather 2019, 2020, 2021. So we do expect to see an uptick. Right now, personal observation. Now, again, I don't have hard data on what I'm about to say, but my observations have shown me that there have been a lot of bankruptcies happening and very, very few short sales. So why is that happening? Well, for one thing, a short sale is if they're underwater. So back here, there were a lot of short sales because the house may have been worth 200 and they owe 250. So the bank would often do a short sale just to get out of it. Now what's happening is prices are up, prices are high. So a lot of people have equity. There's equity in these properties, even though they're delinquent, even though they can't afford to stay there, they have equity. So either they're trying to sell them outright, list them on the MLS and sell them, or go bankrupt and therefore protect that equity. So that's just a little lip that's happening right now. Again, that will, once the market starts to soften again and the prices start to come back to reality, as we get more equilibrium between supply and demand, there won't be that spread of equity so much, and we will see more foreclosures, I'm sure. Do I see another? Yeah, Daryl says 21 days in Texas. Yeah, I mean, Texas is one of the quickest foreclosure states. Again, it's a non-judicial state. Generally have judicial and non-judicial, and then there's a few states that are a combination. Judicial is generally very slow, and non-judicial states happen a whole lot faster. Okay. Any other questions?
I don't see anything.
Okay. Well, I guess that's what I have for you this evening. If there's no more questions, I'll hand it back to you. I want to thank everyone for attending, and I hope you found this useful. If you have questions, you can reach out to me at auction.com or reach out to Express Capital for additional information on funding.
Yep. And again, thank everybody for attending. In the event that anybody didn't see my information, I'll give it to you really quick. My cell phone is 732-800-7119. Again, that's 732-800-7119. And my email is stevens@expresscapitalfinancing.com.
And if you have questions, especially if you're in the New Jersey area, my email is Uva, that's first initial A, last name UVA, @auction.com. And if you are not in New Jersey and or my Northeast region, have questions, I will be glad to forward your information on to whoever your local auction.com contact may be.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much. And hopefully we'll hear from you guys soon.
Okay. All right. Have a good evening.